The stars stretched endlessly across the viewing screen of the Harmony of Spires. Captain Vilsek stood on the bridge, his 12 legs clicking against the metal floor as he moved between stations. His compound eyes reflected the light of a blue-green planet spinning below them. Earth, the locals called it. A small world in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. Vilsek had been collecting rare creatures for 40 years. The Veltari were known across 3 star systems as the finest collectors of exotic life. Their biodomes on the homeworld of Kesaval held thousands of species. Floating jellyfish that sang in colors, birds made of living crystal, plants that could predict the future through their root patterns. Each specimen was precious, carefully maintained and displayed with pride. But Earth was different. The scans showed an explosion of diverse life unlike anything Vilsek had seen. Mammals, reptiles, birds, insects, fish, millions of species crowded onto one small planet. The dominant species called themselves humans. They were primitive, but showed signs of early space travel. Nothing threatening, nothing special. "Captain, the collection team has returned," his second officer buzzed through the communicator. Vilsek moved to the landing bay. The team had been on Earth's surface for 3 hours, gathering samples from different regions. They brought back plants, insects, a small reptile, and something else. Something with golden fur that walked on 4 legs. "What is this creature?" Vilsek asked, leaning closer to the containment field. "The locals call it a dog," the team leader explained. "We found it near one of their settlements. It approached us willingly. Very curious behavior. The humans seemed upset when we took it, but we detected no weapons or serious resistance." The dog sat calmly in the field, watching them with brown eyes. Its tail moved from side to side. Vilsek noticed a band around its neck with symbols. The translation computer read it as Max. "Run the standard scans," Vilsek ordered. The science officer worked quickly. Data appeared on the screens. Mammalian, carbon-based, simple digestive system, pack animal. Brain size indicated moderate intelligence, nothing remarkable. Social creature, probably lived in groups. "Assessment?" Vilsek asked. "Ordinary specimen, Captain. Nothing particularly exotic. Should we return it?" Vilsek considered this. The creature was looking at him now, head tilted to one side. There was something in those eyes. Interest, maybe. Recognition of intelligence, but the scans were clear. Just another animal. "No. Catalog it and bring it to Kesaval. Add it to the collection." The journey back to the Veltari homeworld took 2 weeks. During that time, Max stayed in his containment cell. The automated systems fed him processed nutrition pellets and provided water. The temperature was carefully controlled. The cell was cleaned regularly by machines. Everything was efficient. Everything was perfect. But Max did not wag his tail anymore. When the ship arrived at Kesaval, Max was transferred to the Grand Collection Facility. The building covered 30 square kilometers, filled with biodomes that recreated environments from across the galaxy. Veltari from all over the planet came to see the exotic creatures. School groups, scientists, tourists. Dr. Hessena, the chief xenobiologist, examined Max personally. She was old by Veltari standards, her exoskeleton marked with the scars of a long career. She had studied life from 100 worlds. This Earth dog was unremarkable in every way. "Place it in Dome 47, she decided, with the other basic mammals. Nothing special about this one." Max was led through clean white corridors to his new home. Dome 47 was large enough, with artificial grass and a small shelter. The temperature matched Earth's climate. A force field separated it from the viewing area where Veltari could observe. But Max was alone. The other creatures in nearby domes were exotic and dangerous, kept isolated for safety. The singing plants couldn't interact with animals. The crystal birds would attack mammals. The floating jellyfish needed water environments. Each species was kept separate, preserved but lonely. For the first few days, Max explored his dome. He sniffed every corner, examined every wall, tested every boundary. He waited by the entrance whenever he heard sounds outside. His tail would start to wag, then stop when no one came in. Visitors occasionally passed by. They looked at Max for a few seconds, read the information display about Earth mammals, then moved on to more interesting exhibits. The telepathic slug was much more popular. So were the color-changing lizards from the nebula rim. The automated feeding system dropped nutrition pellets twice a day. They contained all necessary proteins, vitamins, and minerals according to the scan data. The water was perfectly clean. The temperature never varied. Everything was scientifically perfect. But Max stopped eating as much. He would lie in his shelter for hours, not moving. His golden fur lost some of its shine. His eyes became less bright. Dr. Hessena noticed the deterioration during a routine inspection. She ran more scans. Physical health was acceptable. No diseases, no parasites. The creature was simply adapting to captivity, she decided. Some species took longer than others. Increase the nutrition pellet dosage by 15%, she ordered. Monitor for another month. The computer adjusted Max's feeding schedule. The pellets increased, but Max's condition did not improve. 3 months passed, then 6, then a year. Max became part of the background. Staff walked past his dome without looking. The information display gathered dust. School groups skipped his section entirely. There were so many better things to see in the Grand Collection facility. Captain Vilsec never came back to check on his acquisition. He was already planning new expeditions to more distant worlds. Earth and its ordinary creatures were forgotten. Only one Veltari paid any attention to Max. Technician Becklor was young and considered strange by his people. He worked the night maintenance shift, checking systems and repairing equipment when the facility was empty. Other Veltari found him odd because he seemed too interested in the creatures themselves, not just their scientific value. One night, while checking the environmental controls in Dome 47, Becklor saw Max lying in his shelter. The dog's ribs were starting to show through his fur. His water bowl was full, but he looked dehydrated somehow. Not physically. Emotionally, maybe, though Becklor didn't have the words for it. "Hello," Becklor said quietly, even though the force field prevented Max from hearing him. Max raised his head slightly, then lowered it again. Becklor stood there for a long time, watching. Something was wrong. The scan said Max was fine, but Becklor could see he was dying, not from disease or hunger, from something else, something the machines couldn't measure. He returned to Max's dome every night after that. He couldn't do much. Against protocol, he adjusted the feeding system to provide more variety. He spent extra time observing, taking notes that no one would read. Max seemed to know when Becklor was there. He would come to the force field and sit, looking out at the young technician. Two lonely creatures. Separated by invisible barriers, neither could cross. Years passed like this. Max survived, but barely. Becklor continued his secret visits, giving what little help he could. And across the galaxy, on a small blue-green planet, humans built their first deep space vessels and prepared to reach the stars. 5 years had passed since Max arrived at Kessavel. 5 years of automated feeding systems and empty domes. 5 years of loneliness that no machine could measure or fix. Max was thinner now, despite the carefully calculated nutrition. His golden fur had turned dull and patchy in places. He no longer explored his dome or waited by the entrance with hope. Most days, he simply lay in his shelter, conserving energy, existing, but not living. The Grand Collection facility had acquired 70 new species during those 5 years. Each one more exotic than Max, each one more worthy of attention and resources. The telepathic slug could communicate through thoughts. The phase-shifting cats could walk through walls. The singing flowers from the core worlds could cure diseases with their melodies. Nobody cared about an ordinary dog from an ordinary planet. Nobody except Becklor. The young technician had been reprimanded twice for spending too much time in Dome 47. His supervisor warned him that emotional attachment to specimens was unprofessional. Veltari were supposed to be objective, scientific, detached. Becklor's excessive empathy was seen as a weakness, a flaw in his character. But Becklor couldn't stop himself. Every night during his maintenance rounds, he visited Max. He had learned to recognize the dog's moods, even through the force field. The way Max's ears drooped when he was sad, the slight wag of his tail when Becklor appeared, a shadow of what it must have once been. The way Max would press his nose against the force field, as close to contact as possible. One night, Becklor made a decision that could cost him his job. He deactivated the force field. Max lifted his head, sensing the change immediately. The invisible barrier was gone. For the first time in 5 years, nothing separated them. Becklor entered slowly, his multiple legs clicking softly on the artificial grass. Max watched him, uncertain. Years of isolation had made him fearful of sudden movements. "Hello, Max," Becklor said in his clicking, buzzing language. The dog wouldn't understand the words, but maybe the tone would communicate something. Max stood up slowly, his legs shaky. He took one step forward, then another. When he reached Becklor, he sniffed carefully at the technician's lower legs. Then, in a moment that would stay with Becklor forever, Max's tail began to wag. Slowly at first, then faster. His whole body shook with the motion. Becklor carefully extended one of his smaller manipulation arms and touched Max's head. The fur was soft, warm. Max leaned into the touch, and a sound came from his throat. Not quite a whimper, not quite a whine. A sound of desperate gratitude for the first real contact in 5 years. "I'm sorry," Becklor whispered. "I'm so sorry we didn't understand." From that night forward, Becklor spent every spare moment with Max. He brought better food smuggled from the staff cafeteria, real meat when he could find it. He brought a maintenance tool that Max learned to chase and retrieve, some ancient instinct kicking in despite years of depression. He simply sat with Max, providing the companionship the dog needed as much as food or water. Max improved. His eyes brightened. His fur regained some shine. He ate more. He moved around his dome with purpose again. But Becklor knew it wasn't enough. Max needed more than one friend visiting in secret during night shifts. Max needed to go home. But Earth was far away, and humans were still just beginning their space exploration. The chances of rescue were impossible. Except they weren't. On Earth, humanity had achieved something remarkable in just 5 years. Driven by curiosity and determination, they had developed faster than light travel. Their ships were crude compared to Veltari technology, but they worked. Human exploration vessels began reaching neighboring star systems, mapping trade routes, making first contact with alien species. The galaxy watched with interest. Most advanced civilizations had taken centuries to develop FTL travel. Humans did it in decades. They were aggressive, innovative, and surprisingly resilient. Also surprisingly emotional. They formed attachments quickly, spoke often of honor and loyalty, and seemed obsessed with protecting their own. When humans made official first contact with the Veltari, diplomatic channels opened. Information was exchanged, cultural data was shared, and buried in that mountain of data was a detail that caught the attention of human intelligence. The Veltari had collected biological specimens from Earth 5 years earlier. The human government demanded a full list of what had been taken. The Veltari provided it, confused by the aggressive response. Some plants, some insects, a small reptile. One mammal classified as Canis familiaris, common name, dog, identification tag, Max. The response from Earth was immediate and intense. News spread across the entire planet in hours. A dog had been taken. A dog had been held in alien captivity for 5 years. The public outcry was enormous. Governments prepared formal complaints. The military considered it an act of theft. But it was the exploratory division that acted fastest. Captain Tae-hyun, commander of humanity's newest deep space vessel, New Soul, volunteered for the mission immediately. "We're going to get him back," Tae-hyun told his crew during the briefing. "I don't care what it takes. We don't leave our own behind, not even a dog." His crew agreed without hesitation. Lieutenant Ji-won, the biologist, had grown up with 3 dogs. Ensign Hyun-woo, the pilot, had lost his own dog to old age just months before launch. Every human on the ship understood the mission's importance in a way no alien species could comprehend. The New Soul was designed for exploration and diplomacy, not combat. It carried scientific equipment, translation computers, and gifts for potential alien allies. But the crew prepared for any possibility. They brought medical equipment for animals. They brought Earth food suitable for dogs. They brought toys, blankets, and everything a traumatized dog might need. The journey to Kesaval took 3 weeks. During that time, the crew prepared mentally and emotionally. Ji-won reviewed everything known about extended captivity in dogs. Hyun-woo practiced calming techniques, knowing he would likely be the first to interact with Max. Tae-hyun composed and recomposed his speeches to the Veltari, balancing diplomacy with barely controlled anger. When the New Soul entered Veltari space, they sent a formal request for diplomatic talks. The Veltari Council was amused. These primitive humans wanted to visit their advanced world? How entertaining. Permission was granted immediately. The humans were invited to tour the Grand Collection facility as a gesture of cultural exchange. The Veltari were proud of their collection and eager to show it off. They had no idea what they were about to face. As the New Soul approached Kesaval, Captain Tae-hyun stood on the bridge, looking at the alien planet growing larger on the screen. Somewhere down there, a dog had waited 5 years for rescue. A dog who probably thought he had been abandoned and forgotten. "We're coming, Max," Tae-hyun said quietly. "Hold on just a little longer." The shuttle from the New Soul landed at the Grand Collection facility's diplomatic platform. Captain Tae-hyun stepped out first, followed by Lieutenant Ji-won and Ensign Hyun-woo. They wore their formal uniforms, deep blue with silver trim, representing Earth's United Exploration Force. Dr. Hesena waited to greet them, along with several facility officials. Her compound eyes studied the humans with scientific interest. So these were the species that had developed FTL travel so quickly. They looked fragile, soft skin, no natural armor, only 2 legs, 2 arms. Strange, forward-facing eyes that tracked movement with unnerving focus. "Welcome to Kesaval," Hesena buzzed through her translator device. "We are honored to show you our collection. It is the finest in 3 star systems." Tae-hyun bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that his cultural briefing said the Veltari would appreciate. "We are grateful for your hospitality. We are eager to learn about your facility." The tour began. Hesena led them through massive corridors lined with viewing windows into various biodomes. She spoke with pride about each specimen. The telepathic slug that could share thoughts across vast distances. The crystal birds whose feathers could cut through steel. The singing flowers that bloomed in 17 different colors. The humans looked at everything, but their attention was scattered. Ji-won carried a handheld scanner, supposedly recording biological data for Earth's scientific community. In reality, she was searching for one specific biological signature: dog, Canis familiaris, Max. They passed through sections holding thousands of species, aquatic domes with creatures from water worlds, temperature-controlled environments for ice-dwelling life, high-gravity chambers for dense world species, Everything was organized, labeled, maintained with perfect scientific precision. "You keep them well," Tae-hyun observed, his voice carefully neutral. "Of course," Hesina replied. "Each specimen receives optimal care, temperature, nutrition, atmospheric composition, all precisely calculated for their home environment." "And companionship?" Ji-won asked suddenly. "Social interaction?" Hesina's antennae twitched with confusion. "These are specimens for study and display. Companionship is unnecessary. Most species prefer isolation from potential predators and competitors." Ji-won's jaw tightened, but she said nothing more. They were passing through a less visited section of the facility when Ji-won's scanner began beeping softly. Her heart rate increased immediately. Hyun-woo noticed her reaction and moved closer. "What is it?" he whispered in Korean, knowing the translator wouldn't pick up the quiet words. "Canine DNA signature," Ji-won whispered back. "Close, very close." Tae-hyun saw them stop and moved to block Hesina's view, asking a question about the phase-shifting cats they had just passed. The doctor turned to answer, and Ji-won quickly checked her scanner's directional indicator. There, to the left, Dome 47. The humans exchanged glances. Years of military training allowed them to communicate without words. They had found him. "Dr. Hesina," Tae-hyun said casually, "what about this section? We have not seen these specimens yet." "Oh, that area holds only basic mammals from various worlds," Hesina replied dismissively. "Nothing particularly interesting. We should move on to the core world exhibits. Those are much more impressive." "Nevertheless, we are interested in all life forms," Ji-won said firmly. "Our scientific mission includes cataloging even common species, for completeness." Hesina's antennae waved with slight annoyance, but she agreed. Humans were guests, after all. If they wanted to waste time looking at boring specimens, that was their choice. They walked down the quiet corridor. Fewer visitors came to this section. The domes were less well-maintained, their information displays outdated. Most held creatures that had long since stopped attracting attention. Then they reached Dome 47. Hyun-woo saw him first. A medium-sized dog lying in the artificial shelter, golden fur, dull and patchy, thin, so thin. The dog's ribs were visible through his coat. His eyes were half closed as if sleeping, but there was no peace in his posture, just exhaustion. "That's a dog," Ji-won said, her voice breaking despite her training. The other humans moved quickly to the viewing window. Max, hearing the sudden movement and voices, lifted his head. For 5 years, viewers had been mostly silent Veltari who barely glanced at him. These sounds were different, higher-pitched, rapid, emotional. Max stood up slowly, his legs shaking slightly. He approached the force field, drawn by something he couldn't identify. As he got closer, he saw them. 2-legged creatures, soft skin, forward-facing eyes. Familiar. A memory stirred. From before the collection ship. From his old life. Humans. These were humans. Max's entire body began to tremble. His tail, which had barely moved in years except for Becklor's visits, began to wag. Slowly at first, then faster and faster until his whole back end was shaking with the motion. "His name is Max," Hyun-woo said, reading the faded collar through the transparent force field. Tears were streaming down his face openly now. "He's been here for 5 years. Alone." Tae-hyun placed his hand flat against the viewing window. Max, on the other side, pressed his nose against the same spot. The glass was cold and lifeless between them, but the gesture transcended species, recognition, connection, hope. "I don't understand," Hesina said, genuinely confused by the human's intense emotional response. "It is a simple creature. We provide adequate sustenance and shelter, All biological needs are met. Jiwan turned to face her, and the Veltari doctor was surprised by the fierce intensity in the human's eyes. You don't understand anything. Dogs aren't just animals to us. They're family, partners, friends. They've been with humans for over 30,000 years. Impossible, Hesina clicked. Our scans show ordinary intelligence, simple pack behavior, nothing exceptional or unique. It is no different from hundreds of other social mammals. Then you measured the wrong things, Taehyun said, his voice steady but filled with controlled anger. You measured brain size and basic biology. You didn't measure loyalty. You didn't measure love. You didn't measure the bond that forms between humans and dogs. These concepts are not scientifically quantifiable, Hesina argued. Then your science is incomplete, Jiwan replied. Dogs evolved alongside humans. They learn to read our facial expressions better than any other species. They can detect our emotions, our illnesses, our intentions. They guard our children. They comfort us when we grieve. They work with us, play with us, live with us. They're not meant to be alone in a cage. Hesina looked at the humans, then at Max, then back at the humans. The dog was still pressed against the force field, still wagging his tail frantically, still making small whimpering sounds that even the Veltari could recognize as emotional. This creature is displaying significant distress, Hesina observed. He's not distressed, Hyunwoo said, wiping his eyes. He's happy. For the first time in 5 years, he's happy because he can see his own kind, because he remembers, because he knows he's not forgotten. We want him back, Taehyun said, his voice now carrying the authority of Earth's government behind it. We want Max returned to Earth immediately. This is unprecedented, Hesina said. We have never returned a specimen. The diplomatic complications will be much worse if you refuse, Taehyun interrupted. Humans do not abandon their companions, not even ones you consider simple animals, especially not the ones you consider simple animals. Inside the dome, Max was barking now, not aggressive barks, happy barks, excited barks. The sound of a dog who finally believed rescue was possible. Let us interact with him, Jiwan demanded. Let us prove to you what you've failed to understand for 5 years. Let us show you what makes this simple creature so extraordinary. Dr. Hesina had never seen such intensity from any species before. The humans stood before her with expressions she couldn't fully read, but the emotion behind them was unmistakable. Anger, determination, love. These primitive creatures genuinely cared about the dog in Dome 47. This is highly irregular, Hesina said, her translator clicking rapidly. Specimens are not meant to interact with visitors. It could contaminate our data. Your data is already wrong, Jiwan replied sharply. You've studied Max for 5 years and learned nothing important. Give us 1 hour. 1 hour to show you what you've missed. Hesina hesitated. The humans were officially diplomatic guests. Refusing their request could create problems. And truthfully, she was curious. She had spent her entire life studying alien biology. If these humans knew something about their own species' relationship with this creature, perhaps it had scientific value. Very well. 1 hour, under strict supervision. We will monitor everything. Within 20 minutes, a medical team had set up scanning equipment around Dome 47, neural monitors, chemical analyzers, behavioral tracking cameras. If there was something special about the human-dog interaction, the Veltari were determined to measure it. Ensign Hyunwoo was chosen to enter first. He was the youngest, the one who had most recently lived with a dog, the one who understood their needs most deeply. He changed out of his formal uniform into simple clothes, wanting to appear as non-threatening as possible. As he prepared, Jiwon briefed him. Remember, he's traumatized. 5 years of isolation. He might be afraid at first. Let him approach you. Don't force contact. Speak softly. Move slowly. Hyunwoo nodded, but inside his heart was breaking. Max had been someone's pet, someone's friend, and that someone probably thought Max had died or run away. They had grieved, moved on. They didn't know Max had been taken to the stars. The force field deactivated with a soft hum. Hyunwoo stepped into the dome, and immediately Max's attention locked onto him. The dog stood in the center of the artificial grass, tail wagging but body tense. 5 years had taught him that hope often led to disappointment. Hyunwoo sat down cross-legged on the grass, making himself small and non-threatening. He spoke in Korean, his voice soft and warm. "Hello, Max. Good boy. It's okay. You're safe now. I promise you're safe." Max took one step forward, then stopped. His tail continued wagging, but uncertainty filled his eyes. Outside the dome, Taehyun and Jiwon watched with held breath. Behind them, Hesina and her team monitored their scanning equipment. "Neural activity in both subjects is increasing," one technician reported. "The human's limbic system shows high emotional engagement. The dog's brain is showing curious patterns. Processing speed is increasing beyond baseline measurements." Hyunwoo continued speaking softly, maintaining eye contact without staring aggressively. "That's it, good boy. Come here. It's okay. I know you've been alone. I know it's been hard, but we're here now. We came for you." Max took another step, then another. Slowly, carefully, he crossed the distance between them. When he reached Hyunwoo, he sniffed carefully at the ensign's hands, his clothes, his face. Familiar scents, human scents, home scents. Then Max pressed his head against Hyunwoo's chest, and a sound escaped him. Not quite a bark, not quite a whine. A sound of pure emotional release. 5 years of loneliness poured out in that single vocalization. Hyunwoo wrapped his arms around Max and began crying openly. His hands ran through Max's fur, feeling the bones beneath, the places where he had grown too thin. I'm so sorry this happened to you. But you're going home, I promise you're going home." Max's tail wagged so hard his whole body shook. He licked Hyunwoo's face, pressed closer, and made happy whimpering sounds. Outside, Jiwon was crying too. Even Taehyun had to wipe his eyes. "Extraordinary," one of the Veltari technicians buzzed. "The neural patterns are synchronizing. Look at the scans. The human's emotional state is affecting the dog's neurochemistry and vice versa. They're creating a feedback loop of positive reinforcement." Dr. Hesina moved closer to the monitors. The data was undeniable. When Hyunwoo felt sadness, Max responded with comforting behaviors, pressing closer, making soft sounds, maintaining physical contact. When Max felt anxiety, Hyunwoo instinctively adjusted his touch, his voice, his posture to provide reassurance. Neither was consciously controlling these responses. It was automatic, instinctive, the product of 30,000 years of co-evolution. "This is remarkable," Hesina admitted. "I have never seen such synchronized behavioral adaptation between two different species." Jiwon wiped her tears and turned to face the Veltari doctor. "Now do you understand? This isn't something you can measure with standard biology scans. Dogs and humans evolved together. Ancient humans took in wolf pups, and over thousands of generations, those wolves changed. They learned to read our faces, to understand our emotions, to communicate with us in ways no other species can." "But what advantage does this provide?" Hesina asked. "From an evolutionary standpoint, why would such a bond form?" "Survival," Taehyun answered. "Humans weren't the strongest creatures on Earth. We didn't have claws or sharp teeth or thick hides. We were slow, vulnerable, and lived in a world full of predators, but we were smart, and we could form bonds. Dogs gave us better senses, their hearing, their smell. They guarded our camps at night. They helped us hunt. They kept us warm in cold weather, and we gave them food, shelter, protection, and family." Together, we were stronger than either species alone, Jiwan continued. But it became more than just survival strategy. It became love. True, genuine emotional attachment. My grandmother had a dog who could detect her seizures before they happened and would warn her. My friend's dog pulled her child out of a pool before anyone knew the child had fallen in. These aren't trained behaviors. These are the actions of a species that genuinely cares about us. Inside the dome, Hyunwoo had produced a small ball from his pocket. He threw it gently, and Max, despite 5 years without play, immediately chased it. The instinct was still there, buried, but not lost. Max brought the ball back and dropped it at Hyunwoo's feet, looking up with bright eyes and an open-mouthed expression that to anyone who knew dogs was clearly a smile. "Watch this," Jiwan told Hesina. "Watch what happens when Hyunwoo pretends to be sad." Hyunwoo sat down heavily and put his face in his hands, making his shoulders shake as if crying. Max immediately stopped playing. He approached Hyunwoo, pushed his nose under the ensign's arm, and whined softly. When Hyunwoo didn't respond, Max licked his face and pressed his whole body against him. "The dog is attempting to comfort the human," a technician observed. "Not for food reward or any obvious benefit. Simply responding to perceived distress." "Because that's what dogs do," Jiwan said softly. "They care about us. Not because we feed them or shelter them, though those help. They care because they're programmed by 30,000 years of evolution to care, just as we're programmed to care about them." Hyunwoo looked up and smiled at Max, showing the dog he was okay. Max's tail immediately resumed wagging, and he play-bowed, inviting more interaction. Tae-hyun turned to Hesina. "You called Max a simple creature. You measured his intelligence by brain size and basic cognition. But intelligence isn't just about problem-solving or tool use. It's about emotional complexity, social bonding, and the ability to form meaningful relationships across species barriers. In that measurement, dogs are extraordinary, and in that measurement, you failed them." Hesina stood silent for a long moment, watching the human and dog play together in the dome. The joy was obvious. The bond was real. Her scientific instruments confirmed what her eyes could see. This relationship was something special, something unique. "We have made an error," she finally said. "A significant error in judgment. This creature should never have been kept in isolation. We did not understand what we were observing." "No," Jiwan agreed. "You didn't. And now you need to make it right." In the dome, Max had found happiness for the first time in 5 years. But Hyunwoo knew this was temporary. Max needed to go home. Home to Earth, where dogs were family, not specimens. Where they were loved, not studied. The Veltari had learned an important lesson today, but Max had paid the price for their education with 5 years of his life. That debt could never be fully repaid, but returning him was a start. The Veltari High Council met in emergency session. 12 of the eldest and most respected members sat in their circular chamber, their antennae waving with agitation. News of the human-dog demonstration had spread quickly through Kesaval's scientific community. Everyone was talking about it. Some called it remarkable. Others called it impossible. All agreed it changed their understanding of interspecies relationships. Captain Tae-hyun stood before the council, flanked by Ji-won and Hyun-woo. Behind them, on a large display screen, footage played of Max and Hyun-woo together in the dome. The bond was obvious, even to species that had never seen such a thing before. "We acknowledge an error in judgment," Council Leader Thesakal spoke, her voice amplified through the chamber. "We collected the creature called Max without understanding his significance to your species. We maintained him without understanding his needs. For this, we apologize." Tae-hyun bowed his head slightly. An apology from the Veltari Council was unprecedented, but it wasn't enough. "We appreciate your acknowledgement," Tae-hyun replied. But Max needs more than apologies. He needs to go home. We formally request his immediate release and transport back to Earth. Agreed, Thessalcael said. But we also wish to offer compensation. Resources, technology, trade agreements. Name your price for this diplomatic incident. Tae-hyun exchanged glances with his crew. They had discussed this possibility during the flight to Kesaval. The Veltari had resources humanity could use, technology that could advance Earth's development by decades. It would be easy to demand payment, to turn Max's suffering into material gain. But that felt wrong. Keep your resources, Tae-hyun said firmly. We don't want payment for Max's return. He isn't property to be bought and sold. He's a living being who deserves to go home. The council members buzzed among themselves in surprise. Most species would have demanded massive compensation. These humans were refusing? However, Tae-hyun continued, we do have a request. Allow us to teach you. Allow us to share what we know about companionship, about the bonds between species, about the value of emotional connections. Let us show the galaxy what humanity learned 30,000 years ago. That true advancement isn't measured only by technology, but by the relationships we build and the compassion we show. Ji-won stepped forward. We propose the companion program. Human teachers and animal experts will come to Kesaval and other interested worlds. We'll teach about dogs, cats, horses, and other species that have bonded with humanity. We'll teach proper care, emotional needs, and the science of interspecies relationships, free of charge, as a gift from Earth to the galaxy. The council deliberated for less than 5 minutes. The answer was unanimous approval. 3 days later, Max walked onto the shuttle bound for the New Soul. He walked on his own 4 legs, his tail wagging, pressed close to Hyunwoo's side. The young ensign had barely left Max's side since their first meeting. They had bonded completely, 2 lonely souls finding companionship in each other. Dr. Hesena came to see them off. I have studied life from 100 worlds, she told the humans, but I never understood it until now. We measured everything except what mattered most. Thank you for teaching us. Take care of your other specimens, Ji-won replied. They may not bond like dogs, but they all have needs beyond food and temperature. They all deserve consideration. As the shuttle lifted off, someone else watched from a maintenance bay window. Technician Becklor had taken a personal risk to care for Max during those long years. Seeing the dog leave healthy and happy made every reprimand worth it. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, Max transformed. Dr. Nari, the ship's veterinarian, treated his malnutrition and health issues. His fur regained its golden shine. His ribs stopped showing. His eyes brightened with life and purpose. But more importantly, Max was never alone. The crew of the New Soul took turns spending time with him. He slept in Hyunwoo's quarters. He attended bridge shifts, lying quietly at the captain's feet. He played in the ship's small recreation area, chasing balls and enjoying attention from everyone who passed by. Humans, the crew realized, were simply better with Max around. Stress levels decreased, morale improved, people smiled more, worked better together. The dog didn't just receive care, he gave it back in countless small ways. When the New Soul entered Earth's orbit, Tae-hyun sent a message ahead. Mission successful. We're bringing him home. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every major news network wanted the story. The Seoul spaceport prepared a special reception. Millions of people tracked the ship's descent in real time. Max's rescue had captured humanity's collective heart. Dr. Nari waited at the spaceport with a full medical team. Max walked down the shuttle ramp on his own legs, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Cameras flashed, people cried. This wasn't just one dog coming home. This was a statement about human values, about what humanity would do for their companions, about who they were as a species. Hyunwoo formally adopted Max that same day. The paperwork took less than an hour. Max had found his forever home. But Max's story didn't end there. It spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The footage of Max and Hyunwoo's reunion in Dome 47 was watched by billions of beings on hundreds of worlds. Species that had long since abandoned their own ancient partnerships began researching their forgotten histories. The Veltari erected a statue in their capital city. It showed a human and a dog sitting together, looking up at the stars. The inscription was written in both human and Veltari languages. They crossed the galaxy not for conquest, but for a friend. We collected specimens. They collected family. In neglecting the bond, we neglected everything that truly matters. Technician Becklor became the first Veltari to adopt an Earth dog. He named her Hope, and with human advisors' help, he learned to care for her properly. His choice inspired thousands of others across multiple species. The companion program that Tae-hyun proposed became one of humanity's most successful diplomatic initiatives. Other species began sharing their own stories. The Andorians had once bonded with flying creatures, but had abandoned them for technology. The Nexians had domesticated herd animals that could navigate dangerous terrain, but had replaced them with machines. Countless civilizations had forgotten the value of companionship in their rush toward progress. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't advanced weapons or faster ships. It was a reminder of something precious that had been lost, the simple, profound bond between different species. The understanding that progress without compassion was empty, that technology without relationships was cold. 3 years after his rescue, Max lived happily with Hyunwoo in a small house near the Seoul spaceport. He spent his days running in parks, playing with other dogs, and sleeping in the sun. When Hyunwoo came home from space missions, Max greeted him with the same enthusiastic tail-wagging and joyful barking he had shown in Dome 47. Max never forgot his time in the alien facility. Sometimes he would have bad dreams and wake up whimpering. But Hyunwoo was always there to comfort him, to remind him he was safe, loved, and home. On Max's 8th birthday, Hyunwoo received a message from Kesaval. It was from Becklor. The young technician sent a picture of himself with Hope, his own dog. She was a golden retriever, not unlike Max, with the same gentle eyes and loyal heart. "Thank you for teaching us," Becklor's message read. "I understand now what Max needed, what all of them need. We are learning, slowly, but learning. Hope is teaching me patience, joy, and unconditional love. I never knew such things existed until you showed us." Hyunwoo showed the message to Max, who was lying beside him on the couch. "You changed the galaxy, boy. You and all the other dogs who showed aliens what companionship really means." Max's tail thumped against the cushions. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Love, appreciation, belonging. That night, humanity's exploration fleet continued its journey through the stars. But now, on many of those ships, dogs traveled alongside their human companions. Cats lounged in crew quarters. The occasional horse had been adapted for zero-gravity environments. Humanity expanded across the galaxy not as conquerors or traders, but as friends who refused to explore the cosmos alone. And on distant Kesaval, the Grand Collection facility underwent massive renovations. Domes were redesigned with companionship in mind. Automation was reduced in favor of direct caregiver interaction. The Veltari learned, sometimes awkwardly and slowly, to see their specimens not just as scientific curiosities, but as living beings deserving of dignity and care. In the center of the facility, Dome 47 was preserved exactly as it had been. Not as a functioning enclosure, but as a memorial, a reminder of the cost of neglect, of the importance of empathy, of what happens when advancement comes at the expense of compassion. And beneath Max's old shelter, a plaque was installed. It read simply, Max, who taught the galaxy that the measure of civilization is not found in the stars we conquer, but in the bonds we refuse to break. Max lived to be 14 years old. He passed away peacefully in his sleep, with Yunwu holding him, whispering that he was a good boy. The best boy. His legacy outlived him by millennia. Across hundreds of worlds, in dozens of languages, his story was told. The dog who was neglected and forgotten, but never abandoned. The dog whose rescue changed how an entire galaxy understood companionship, loyalty, and love. Because in the end, humanity's greatest achievement wasn't the ships they built or the worlds they discovered. It was their refusal to measure advancement by technology alone. It was their understanding that sometimes the most important journeys aren't to distant stars, but to the hearts of the companions who walk beside us. Even when those companions have 4 legs and a wagging tail.